Thanks for joining us. It was a crushing defeat. Brazil's dream of winning the World Cup on home soil has come to an end in a spectacular fashion.
The game in Belo Horizonte got off to a breathtaking start, with Germany scoring 5 goals in the first half hour. In the end, they were thrashed 7-1 by the German team. Let's cross live now to Rio and join the BBC's Ben Brown.
Well, here in Rio, the weather is miserable. The heavens have opened. It is pouring with rain, just to add to the misery of Brazilians here who watched that game in utter shock and disbelief. They simply could not believe what they were seeing. They knew that this was perhaps not the best Brazil side in Brazilian football history. They knew that their star player Neymar was out with a fractured vertebra and their captain Thiago Silva was suspended. And maybe they didn't even expect to win some of them, but they never, any of them, in their worst nightmares, expected a 7-1 thrashing, probably the worst defeat in their national footballing history, to match the humiliation they felt in 1950 when they were beaten here in Brazil in the World Cup final by Uruguay. This is a defeat that will take them many years to live down. They are a footballing nation, a football-crazy nation, that are now traumatised and will be traumatised and saddened by this defeat for many years to come. It'll take them a long time to live it down. And the players at the end were in tears, so too were many of their fans. Steve Crossman looks back on an extraordinary football match.
What do we do without Neymar? That was what every Brazilian was asking before the game. But what they did without captain Thiago Silva, that quickly became the more pertinent issue. First, Germany's Thomas Müller was left free to fire in his 5th goal of the tournament, equalling his Golden Boot winning tally of 4 years ago. Miroslav Klose had already levelled the all-time goal-scoring World Cup record in Brazil. He then broke it against Brazil. His 16th career strike took 2 bites, and it signalled the start of the feast. 3 more followed in 6 minutes. Toni Kroos made it worse. Then he put the game out of reach before Sami Khedira got Germany's 5th. The stands were a cocktail of emotion. Some couldn't believe it, others couldn't handle it. Andre Schürrle came on at half-time and scored the 6th and 7th. The hosts humbled by a Germany side within touching distance of a first World Cup win since reunification. Steve Crossman, BBC News.
Well, here in Rio, many of the fans were watching on the big screen down there on the beach at Copacabana, and at half-time, after those 4 goals in just 6 minutes, a lot of the fans simply walked away in disbelief, some of them crying, some with their heads in their hands. There have been a lot of protests in the run-up to this tournament, you might remember, by Brazilians, some of them angry at the sheer cost of this tournament, $11 billion. Well, some of them might be asking tonight whether it was worth all that money just to see their national side completely humiliated on the football pitch, 7-1 by Germany. Wira Davis has been gauging the reaction from some of the fans.
Not in their worst nightmares did anyone in Brazil think this is how it would end. The scene had been set at the stadium in Belo Horizonte and at street parties across the country. This was to have been Brazil's inevitable march towards their own World Cup final. But everywhere, heads dropped, mouths opened wide, and people cried as this proud footballing country was completely humiliated. The stadium emptied and the fan fest fell quiet. No one in Brazil had seen this coming.
I think it's really sad in the end to end the competition, to end the championship with this kind of negative result.
For Brazil, for the Brazilian people, it's very embarrassing,
Well, the Germans have well and truly rained on Brazil's parade tonight. This has been a complete footballing humiliation. Any notion that Brazil were finally going to win a World Cup on their own soil has been completely extinguished. This has been a roller coaster of a tournament, but ultimately disappointment and embarrassment in a country where football means so much.
There will be an inquest, resignations, and a period of national mourning. But it will take this country a long time to get over what happened at the Mineirão Stadium in Belo Horizonte. Wira Davis, BBC News, Rio de Janeiro.
And I have to say, having been with the Brazilian fans for the last few weeks, they are so colourful, they love their football so much. It is sad to see them in such despair this evening? Well, Julia Canero has been with some of the fans in a suburb in the north of Rio. Julia, over to you.
Ben, this is a traditional street party. I've seen lots of the other matches here, and it was always very cheerful. Today the mood is very different. It's quite melancholic with all the colorful decoration, the green and yellow bunting on the street. Already, before the first half was over, people were starting to leave. They were just very upset with the result. 5-0 already. Nobody expecting that Brazil could recover after those first minutes with so many goals scored. And now there's some music playing, a band playing here, trying to cheer up the crowd, and lots of people here still trying to get over what happened. But Brazilians are very unforgiving when it comes to football, and it certainly is going to be quite a massacre on the Brazil team tomorrow and the following days, following years. Having grown up here in Brazil, I remember since 1950, that defeat in 1950 against Uruguay, people talk about that until today. And this 7-1 defeat against Germany is certainly going to be a big trauma for the country, and especially for those players, Ben.
Julia, indeed so, yes, very, very traumatic. It was at times almost excruciatingly painful to watch that football match, but we shouldn't just talk about the negative side, the pain of the Brazilians in a sense, because we should talk about and admire the play of the Germans. Let's just show you some of the pictures of German fans in Berlin who were watching this extraordinary match, as they probably couldn't believe, just like we couldn't believe, how many goals they were putting past Julio Cesar in the Brazilian goal. Those 4 goals in particular within 6 minutes in the first half, and then Schürrle with a couple more in the 69th and 79th minute to cap it all, and then Oscar just getting that one consolation goal, if you can call it a consolation, for Brazil. Germany must now believe, and their fans must believe, that they are in such scintillating, mesmerising form that there's every chance, whoever they face in the World Cup final, whether it is Argentina or the Netherlands, they've got an extremely good chance of victory if they play half as well as they played this evening. Well, let us talk now to Fernando Callas, who joins me here on this very wet, soaking evening in Rio. You didn't see this coming, did you, Fernando? Brazilian football journalist, expert on Brazilian football, but nobody would have foreseen a collapse like this.
I think that the country of football is the way that we like to call us. Just got a lesson about football from the Germans. We had to learn from them. We are not the country of football anymore. It's a shame that we are in this situation, but it's something that we all saw it coming here in Brazil, because we are outdated. The Brazilian football is outdated. The Brazilian football started, like to live in the past. It didn't evolve. So you see now Germany, you see Holland, you see even Spain that lost this year, but you have so many good players that can play in different positions, modern football, high pace. You can be like Miller, that you're a midfielder, but you can play forward, you can be in the side. Lamb, that is a defender that can play in the midfield.
But how does Brazil rebuild? How do you pick up the pieces from this defeat?
The good thing about 7 goals is that you have to start from scratch. You have to start from zero. It's like that. We have to go back and look at our history, not leave from our history, but look at our history of really good players. We did more Zicos, we did more Neymars, we did more Ronaldinho, and less Scolaris, less Parreiras. We don't need pragmatic football. We need to go back to our basics. We need to start playing technical football like the Germans are playing, like Robin is playing, like Holland, like Spain from the last years. They were not good, but they have such a really good youth, coming from the sub-20s generation. So we need to go back to that.
But that could take a long time, that rebuilding process.
Yeah, that's the thing, but it took a long time for us to realize that. We now, the fans, we are realizing that from the last 20 years, we are losing our identity. Now we're going to have to fight to take it back. But I don't know if we're going to make it, because, we have to start from zero.
All right, Fernando Callas, thank you so much for your thoughts. Well, that is what Brazil somehow must do, rebuild, pick itself up as a national team, a great footballing nation, of course, and rebuild and restructure and plan for the future. But right now, this evening, as the rain pours down in Rio, this is a country in utter shock. Back to you in London.